little bit about this. I'm very inspired by this person coming up. So let's go directly to Naomi now.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have never heard such loud applause in this studio. I think we have one exciting segment coming up tonight. Firstly, I would like to thank Jay Knight, the marvellous Mighty Docklands member, for being here. Thank you, Jay.
My pleasure.
So to kick things off, I'd like the audience to get to know Jay, and I've got a little question to ask him.
Sure.
The question is, it's 2016, the Toastmasters Conference in Washington, DC. Jay, you're on stage presenting. What are you talking about and who's with you?
Well, that's an interesting question actually. Probably 2 years ago, I might not have had any idea what to say, what to answer. But about 1.5 years ago, or nearly 2 years ago, I came down with something called Guillain-Barré syndrome. And that certainly changed my life forever, so I'll probably talk about that. And particularly because I couldn't talk for 3 or 4 months, I'd focus my talk on communication. And who I'd have there would be my partner, Joe.
That sounds absolutely fantastic, what you've been talking on, not obviously your experience, but it's a fantastic segue. So could you tell me a little bit more about Guillain-Barré syndrome, please?
Sure. Guillain-Barré, sometimes called GBS, it's shortened down to that. It's a syndrome, so people don't actually know what causes it, as opposed to a disease, which they know the cause of. Guillain-Barré is where your immune system attacks your nerves, particularly your peripheral nerves, so in the muscles that allow you to move, as opposed to the central nervous system, which is your brain and your spine. So essentially that can lead to paralysis, and it generally does, either to part of your body or can lead to complete paralysis. And also it can lead to a lot of pain as well, which some people suffer.
So complete paralysis
Yeah.
and a lot of pain doesn't sound like a particularly fun experience for everyone to have.
No.
Would you be comfortable sharing a little bit more about your experience with this syndrome?
Sure. I actually got the condition after having the flu for a couple of weeks. I couldn't shake the flu, and the first symptom I actually had was I was trying to call our dog over to the table to feed him a scrap of dinner, and I couldn't whistle, and I thought that was really strange. And the next day I woke up and I couldn't swallow. I was trying to eat my Weet-Bix and I couldn't swallow them. So I ended up in hospital, and I guess to cut a long story short, I ended up being in hospital for 9 months. About 3 or 4 of those months I was almost completely paralysed, and it took me about 6 months to start walking again. So in that whole sort of 9 months I've got loads of stories, and probably haven't got time to go through all of them tonight, but yeah, there was probably a few funny ones along the way. It wasn't all doom and gloom. Probably first couple of months it was mostly doom and gloom, but there was certainly an upside as I slowly got better.
I can imagine. We are on a late night show, so do you have one of those funny stories that you could share with us?
Well, the one that springs to mind is around the communication, where first of all I had to blink when I was speaking to people. 1 blink for no and 2 blinks for yes. And then it sort of graduated to using a letterboard. So about 2 weeks into using the letterboard, I thought I'd have a bit of a funny moment, and I started to spell, and this is really slow. Imagine this going over about 2 or 3 minutes. I spelled ID, and that's I'd, yes, K-I-L-L, and Mum and my partner were just looking at each other going, oh no, what's he going to say here? And basically the rest of it was for a cuppa. I'd kill for a cuppa, because my mouth was just so dry. I hadn't drank anything for about 3 or 4 weeks at that point. So that was funny in hindsight, probably.
I think it would have been a little bit funny at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
That is a very good question though. What would you tell someone who has the same condition as you? Do you have any advice? What would you share?
Yeah, I've got a few bits of advice. I mean, the first, most obvious one is that it just takes time. And you hear it from nurses, you hear it from doctors, you hear it from friends or family, and it doesn't really mean much. But when you hear it from someone who's sort of gone through it, then it sort of, it really has some effect. Because I heard it a lot, this is really slow, and you don't get any real comfort from it. When someone comes and tells you, that's good. So that sort of leads me to my other thing, bit of advice would be, trying to get people in to come and see you. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to request that yourself necessarily, but and what else? I think once you've recovered, one thing I've really enjoyed is going in and seeing people who have gone through the same condition that I've gone through as well. So I've seen about 4 or 5 people, at the Austin Hospital, which has been a nice experience.
That sounds really incredible and an amazing opportunity to be able to share this story to an even larger audience. You talked before about, you really needed a cuppa. What other advice would you give to carers or people, looking after and being friends with someone with that syndrome?
That's a really good question, because I think the carers can be sort of almost forgotten a little bit, not only by the patient but maybe by other people around as well, and staff in the hospital. So I guess the first bit of advice is that they really need to look after themselves and not be afraid to ask for help themselves. So you can get really caught up in caring for someone who's really sick. And I think, you sometimes just need time away and some help from others. So that's really my bit of advice.
Words of wisdom, absolutely beautiful. And to wrap up this evening, how have you changed and grown from your experience?
That's another really good question, because a lot of people think that this sort of event causes a dramatic change in your personality. I'm sure it does for some people. I wouldn't say it's done it for me. I think people's personalities get amplified during an experience like this. So if someone's a really nice person, they'll probably be extra nice when they're going through some awkward issue. They'll probably say please when they're got their leg chopped off or whatever, and can you do something about this? Or if they're really grumpy to go in with, they'll be even grumpier. So I saw a lot of that in rehab. But generally, I think I've decided to take things a lot slower. Once I've got out of rehab, and not try not to panic about things too much.
That's beautiful. So ladies and gentlemen, don't panic. You kill for a cuppa. Jay has got one of the biggest senses of empathy that I have heard all year. Book yourself a ticket to the conference in DC, because this man is very much worth it. Thank you.
Hi Steve, what an amazing story.
It was an amazing story.
Jay,
Jay,
you have our support.
you got our support. You're awesome.
Yeah.